maybe graphic. Okay. So I entered all of these flow rates that were measured at our Redwood Bridge between 1972 and 2001. I entered them all into my calculator. This is not a frequency table. This is just raw data. Okay, put it all into L1. I'm going to just check, right? There's 6 times 5, that's 30. I expect there to be 30 elements. So constantly be checking, right? If I look at my last entry, it is the 30th value. So it's confirming that I'm doing this right. And then before I start, I'll just find the MCT, standard deviation, and range. So I go one variable statistics, I feed it L1. And so I just write down some of the numbers here, 1551, 77, and my units are in cubic meters per second. So it's volume, right? Volume per second. And so my standard deviation, MCT, so mean, median. I don't think I did the median on my key, but here it is. It's 1507.5. Please don't forget what the median stands for, right? Half of the time, half of the year, so it'll be less, half of the year, so it'll be more. My mode, I don't think there is one. If I sorted this, there is no mode. So I'm just going to go none. Okay. Maybe I can do the range. The range is 4587 minus 159, sorry. And my range is 4,428. And if you did this, you're just sitting back and relaxing. Yeah, anyway, so MCTs, my standard deviation, I have to do that one yet, is 951.49 meters cubed per second. So I think I've got it all. And so yesterday I kind of gave away what is the width that we're going to use here. But if you did this if you had to do this yourself to determine the width, right? You can actually take the range and divide it by, let's say, 10 or 12 or something that, you kind of imagine how many rows you would like to consider, and that determines the width. So interval width, what I did when I made this question, I went, this is my range, and I divide the range by the number of sections I wanted to divide it into. And that's 442.8. And I just decided, you know what, I want a nice round number, so I decided to go with 500 cubic meters per second as my interval width. That's what I decided to go up by. I'm just going to tell you straight up that I'm not going to make you do this because it's a nightmare to mark. If somebody says 400, otherwise someone else says 300, 600, I'm like, now I have to check every single one of yours with a different width, whether or not you did this right. And it's a nightmare. I'm not going to lie. I stopped doing it, so I'm just going to tell you, I will normally get you started, and then you just have to fill in the rest. Okay, so we've got our widths. I started at 0 because my lowest value was 159, so it just made sense to start from 0, go all to 500. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to start at 0. You might want to start at 1,000 and then go up by 500. That is fine, okay? Let's do the tally part, because that's the tricky part. Okay, so you grab your calculator. Right now, I strongly advise against just using the numbers as they are. Use the sorted list. So I go stat, sort, and then I sort L1. Okay, it's done. I go back to it, and now I will enter them into the corresponding row. So 159 is between 0 and 500, so that's 1, 187, 280, 396, and then there's 500. Where does 500 go? Because it could go in the upper. It always goes into the lower. So 500, so this is how I make 5, a bundle of 5. Now, after 500 is 564. That's in the next bracket. So 564, 881, 946, 991. And I stop because the next value puts me in the next bracket, 1048. It goes in here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 1557 puts me in the next bracket here. So I have to start 1557 goes here. 1589, 1671, 1750, 1785, 1807, 1812, 1877. 2080 puts me in the next bracket. 2180, 2339, 2718 puts me in this bracket here. 3030 puts me in the next bracket. 3058. 4,500. Whoa. I skipped this one. And I'm actually in this very last one with 4,000. So that must have been an outlier, right? That must have been a year. That probably happened in I'm thinking this is the 1997. In 1996, we had a ginormous snow year. The snow was up to the roof of the houses. That's how much snow we had in 1996. And in 1997, when that all melted, we had a flood. So a lot of basements were flooded after that. Did you know that that's the main reason they built the floodway? Are you familiar with that? That there's literally a ditch around the city, right, with a gate. So when the Red River comes in, they open that gate in the spring, and some of the water gets diverted around the city. Because the water level is so high, they can't handle it. So a lot of people's houses and properties flooded. So they open that gate, they let the water in, and as soon as the water level drops, they close that gate and it goes back to normal. But that's one of the reasons they really beefed up our floodway. Okay. Okay. So once you've done that, you just copy this over 5, 4, 6, 8, 3, 1, 2, 0, 0, 1. And then your last check is obviously to add this up and make sure it's 30. I checked. It is 30. So voila, you've got a frequency table. Okay? Now, I do say to use a sorted list. And I'll just make a note here. Note 500 goes into lower bracket. That's what I call it. So 500 goes into that lower bracket. So if you have a number that's right in between, then you put it in the lower. And I'll tell you why. Technically, this goes from 0 to 500. This is technically 500.1, right? Just a little bit more than 500 to 1,000, 1,000.1, and so forth. So it's a little bit more. That's the implication here. Okay? All right. Once you've done that, the graphing part should be straightforward. So we use that table. Let's see if I can zoom out enough to have both of them on there. How is that? Shibas, you can see that? Okay, so here we go. In this case, frequency is number of years. That's the frequency. along the x-axis, we have the flow rate. Flow rates. Meters cubed per second. Sorry, it's hard to see probably. I'm just gonna focus on it. Flow rates, number of years, always. This goes into your x, and this goes into your y. Okay. Next, we've got, I'm gonna use these ones to help me out here. So this is 0 to 500, that works perfectly. And I'm gonna go up by 500. And here, this will be 5 for me. This will be 10, 15. We don't go past. And then just use a ruler for this part. So between 0 and 500, we had 5. Then we had 4. I like to put the numbers at the top. 4. Then we had 6. And then we had 8, 7, 8. Three. Oh, that's not 3. And then it's 1. And then it's 2. What are we doing here? A histogram, right? This is a histogram. And then 1 way at the end here. So 1 way at the end. So now I have my histogram. The bars are all the same width. And last but not least, you need to have your frequency polygon. You don't need to find the midpoints when you already have the histogram, because the midpoints are halfway through each bar. Yes, there's midpoints here as well for the ones that are along the x-axis. And then you just connect. So one thing, you must close them at the ends. Okay. There you go. So this is my frequency polygon. And the other one is the histogram. Right, this is histogram. It's nice to have a legend. For your audience, right? Next, I think I'm gonna stop here. There were some good questions here that you could have tried. If you go with me to 20, for example, so maybe at the bottom of this, I would say try page 20. If you need practice graphing in particular, go to page 20. So page 20 has a frequency table already, and I ask you to make a histogram and a frequency polygon using this table. And I do provide you with a grid there so you can replicate this and see if you are able to do that. Okay. All right. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of today's class, I want you to work. I already assigned up to 20, correct? Or did I assign past 20? Up to 20? Up to 20. That's what I thought. I'm going to say 19 to 23, meaning if you didn't do it, or sorry, 18 to 23. So I'm going to go to page 18 here. And I'm going to say you're going to work from pages 18 all the way to 23. Now, before I send you off, okay, it is important that you take this class time to actually do it, because I cannot do a bunch of graphs over and over with you guys. I just can't. There's not enough time. They take time. And there's a lot of like, do you understand what's happening? What is it telling us? Okay. On page 19, leave 19 for the very end. Once you've done everything else, you go to page 19, and I will show you how to calculate the standard deviation by hand. And guess what? There's a QR code. You scan that, it shows you how to do it. For now, at the beginning, whenever that shows up, it's going to be a bonus, doing it by hand. Like standard deviation by hand is quite a bit of work actually. But by the end of this class, you're going to have to, by the end of this course, you're going to have to know how to do it anyways. So might as well get started on it, okay? So what did I say again? Recap, 18 to 23, leave 19 for the very end, okay? So if you, I'm going to try this, 30 minutes of class time should give you quite a bit of time to get things done.